When it comes to reading the tarot cards, it's hard to know where to start. Which cards should you use? Which spread should you use? What even is a spread? How does it all work? In this series of videos, I'm going to give you a beginner's guide to the cards, some useful spreads and what the cards mean in relation to each other, and give you some of my thoughts on how some readers are better than others. This video is all about the major arcana, so have a look at the other videos in the series for the major arcana, the various spreads and some tips on doing a reading and selecting a reader. I'll put big chapter markers throughout the video so you can jump straight to the bit you're interested in after you've watched the whole thing. I've also created a few downloadable tools and guides which you can grab from my website, and the links in the description below. Cards with fixed markings have been used for centuries as a tool for divination and fortune telling. There's an old legend that Odette de Chandiville, apologies for my pronunciation, mistress of King Charles VI, aka the Mad King of France, introduced the playing cards to the royal court as a means of distracting the king from his bouts of insanity. This led to a fascination with gambling, which in turn led to the painter, again apologies, Acana being commissioned in 1392 to make 3 packs for the king. Over the centuries, the suits on the cards have changed and eventually became the hearts, diamonds, spades and clubs that we're all familiar with. And obviously the major arcana has been removed. During the 19th century, tarot underwent a resurgence which led to the creation of the Rider-Waite tarot cards that most of us are familiar with, that we're going to be looking at today. The other two widely used cards are the Thoth Tarot, created by Aleister Crowley, and the Tarot de Marseille, or the Egyptian Tarot. For this video, we're just looking at the Rider-Waites, but look out for other videos which will be focused on the other types of cards. The terms major and minor arcana were first used by Jean-Baptiste Pitois, aka Paul Christian, a French author and journalist, and his seminal work, The History of Magic, the Supernatural World and Fate Through Times and Peoples, is well worth a read, and the actual English translation that you can find it under in bookstores is called The History and Practice of Magic. Definitely worth a read. In all the cards in the Rider-Waite deck, each component of the image is representative of a different but complementary part of the indication of the card. For each one, I'm going to describe the image, what each part means, and this should make it easier for you to do your interpretations based on what you're being shown and taking into context the surrounding cards. The Fool. The Fool's numbered 0 in the Rider-Waite deck. You can see he's pictured as a young man carrying his belongings in a sack over his shoulder. In his left hand is a white flower and a white dog is his companion. The sun's beaming down on him, the mountains loom in the background and he stands on a precipice. Each of these components of the card represents something. The Fool himself is representative of our inner child. He's carefree, optimistic and naive. The white flower in his hand represents purity. The dog represents pure and unconditional love. The bag on the stick is unremarkable in its small size and represents that he has little knowledge or wisdom. The mountains show the challenge to come, but as we can see from the face of the Fool, he's not concerned about this. The sun shining down represents a positive outlook, and the precipice represents a big change. When the Fool occurs in a reading, he usually means a new opportunity and encourages curiosity. Depending on the placement in the spread, he can mean many different things, but the key things to remember are opportunity, open mind, challenges to come, and purity. The Magician is numbered 1 in the Rider-Waite deck. He's pictured as a person of great power dressed in robes, crowned by the infinity symbol. On the table in front of him are the symbols of the minor arcana, and all around him are flowers. He's raising his right hand to heaven and his left is pointing to earth. Again, each of these images are symbolic. His robes denote his status as a person of power. The infinity symbol crowning him represents infinite knowledge, power, creativity and resourcefulness. The table with the symbols of the minor arcana represents the resources available to him should he choose to use them. The flowers surrounding him represent abundance. The positioning of his arms pointing to both heaven and earth represents the conjunction of the psychic and physical realms. When the magician occurs in a spread, he usually encourages the querent to move ahead with an idea. He shows them they have the resources available to them, and should they choose to use them, there is great abundance. The key things with this card are to move forward with an idea and to utilise all the resources available. The High Priestess, number 2 in the Rider-Waite deck, is pictured in a white and blue robe, wearing a horn crown and cross on her chest. She's seated on a throne holding the Torah. Behind her is a wall of fruit, and behind that is a body of water. To either side are pillars marked with the letters B and J, and at her feet is a crescent moon. There's a lot to unpick in this card, so let's start with the High Priestess herself. She's identified with Shekinah, the presence of female divine energy in us all. Her crown is similar to that of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of the sky and consort of the sun god Ra. Hathor is often seen as a symbolic mother, and in the context of a card reading, she can be seen to represent the spiritual beginning or home. The cross on her chest is representative of the balance of the 4 elements: earth, air, fire and water. Her blue and white robes and veil can be linked to both the Virgin Mary and her position as the gatekeeper between the physical and spiritual worlds. The Torah in her lap is representative of the belief that we each carry within us the memory of our past, present and future lives, known as the Akasha. The pillars to either side of her represent Boaz and Yakin of the mystic Temple of Solomon, a place of great significance in Judaism, where entry was only permitted on the holy day of Yom Kippur and only with the position of the highest priest of Israel. In the context of the card, this represents how closely guarded the knowledge the priestess holds is. The veil behind her represents the balance of male and female energy, symbolised by the palm leaves and the pomegranates. Behind the veil is a body of water representing a wealth of knowledge. The crescent moon at her feet is representative of the ethereal or psychic world that the High Priestess governs. When this card occurs in a spread, it's a very strong indicator that the querent should look inside themselves to find the answers that they seek, because they actually already have the answer. The Empress, card number 3 in the Rider-Waite deck, is pictured wearing a gown embroidered with pomegranates. She wears a crown of 12 stars and has an intricate gold necklace. In her right hand she holds a sceptre. She's seated on a throne which has a heart-shaped base inscribed with the symbol for female. Her throne is covered in cushions and she looks comfortable and at peace. In the foreground is wheat, and behind her is a forest with a stream running through it. This stream appears to fall at her feet. Each of the symbols on this card serves to show the mastery of the Empress and dominion over the world around her. The crown of 12 stars represents the 12 months of the year, showing her power is constant. The sceptre represents her power over life. The wheat represents her power over the things that grow and nourish our bodies. The forest represents her power over things that grow and nourish our souls. The river represents the flow of knowledge, and its position at her feet represents the availability of this knowledge to her. Finally, both the throne and the pomegranates on her gown represent the femininity that underpins everything about the Empress. In a spread, this card strongly encourages the querent to reconnect with their more feminine traits, creativity, nurturing and growth, and to try to connect with the natural world. The 4th major arcana card shows an old man seated at a throne adorned with ram heads. In his right hand he holds a sceptre, and in his left is a globe. He wears a golden crown. Under his red robes is a suit of armour. Behind him are mountains and a red-orange sky, and again a river's shown flowing behind him. In direct contrast to card 3, the Empress, the Emperor represents everything masculine. The rams that adorn his throne represent Mars, the god of war. Likewise, the barren mountains and orange sky represent the planet Mars, named for the god of war. His sceptre and globe are representative of his domination. His crown shows that he's won his battles, but is choosing to continue to wear his suit of armour because he knows he may have to fight again to maintain his position. In his battles, he's gained knowledge and wisdom, symbolised by the river and the grey beard, respectively. In a spread, this card can represent an authority or establishment figure, someone living with the consequences of their actions, or a stubborn single-mindedness. The fifth card in the Major Arcana shows a pope-like figure sitting on a throne. He wears an ornate golden crown and red robes adorned with 3 crosses. Even his feet are adorned with crosses. In his left hand he holds a triple cross, and in his right hand he has 2 fingers raised to heaven and 2 pointed down. 2 tonsured men stand at his feet along with 2 crossed keys. A stone pillar stands to either side of him. In other decks, this card is referred to as the High Priest, making him the male counterpart to the High Priestess. The Hierophant represents order and tradition, and the pillars each side of him represent law and freedom. The positioning of his hand, an echo of the Hanged Man, represents the bridge between heaven and hell, while the triple cross in his left hand is representative of the crucifixion. The keys at his feet are the keys to heaven, and the tonsured monks are seeking knowledge and wisdom. In a spread, this card can represent the need to fit in and to be accepted. It can also represent someone who's comforted by rules and order, or alternatively, it can represent a mentor or a leader, someone who establishes and upholds the rules that others take comfort in. Card 6 sees an Adam and Eve style couple standing naked. Behind each is a tree, and a serpent is coiled around the tree behind Eve. In the background is a mountain, but the main focus of this card is not the lovers themselves, but the being bathed in sunlight, hands and wings raised, floating on a cloud. The biblical imagery in this Rider-Waite card is the biggest divergence from the older or alternative card images. Here we're shown Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, with the tree of knowledge and of good and evil, complete with a serpent. The angelic figure seems to bless their union with the light of heaven shining down on them. In a spread, this card can indicate a relationship where there's a risk of temptation of the heart of one or other party. It can also indicate a choice of suitors and the sacrifice of an aspect of one's life. Ultimately, this card warns that whatever decision is taken, it should not be taken lightly, as the implications will last for a lifetime and will affect more than just the querent themselves. The 7th card shows a warrior riding a chariot. The chariot is being pulled by a black and white sphinx and is adorned with a blue starry canopy, wings and a shield and a gavel. In the background are a city, trees and a body of water. It's said that the warrior in the chariot is controlling the sphinxes, who are said to be pulling in opposite directions, purely through their strength of will. The starry canopy above represents the influence of the heavens on the fate of the warrior. As always, the water represents knowledge. In this card, it's knowledge that's been earned through hard graft. Nothing's been handed to this warrior. They've fought for and earned everything, including dominion over the city, the natural world, and their hard-won knowledge. In a spread, this card can represent self-control, strength, and resilience. Card 8 shows a modestly robed woman crowned with the infinity symbol and seemingly controlling a lion. She appears serene but solemn, and she's adorned with flowers and vines. She stands on a grassy plain with trees and a mountain in the distance. In contrast to the external show of willpower and strength in the chariot, the strength card shows a calm, patient inner strength. This card highlights the importance of empathy, compassion and persuasion to overcome one's challenges. The lion represents the challenge and is often associated with a carnal desire, while the infinity symbol and serenity of the woman represents the qualities required to tame it. In a spread, this card can indicate several things, but it's often interpreted as the need to use quiet influence and patience to achieve a goal, rather than directly challenging it. In card 9, we see an old robed man supporting himself with a stick, his gaze downcast. He holds a lantern up to illuminate the path ahead. The hermit himself represents a solitary search for knowledge. The lantern is the lamp of truth, which will show the way, and the staff represents a guide through the difficult terrain, and the grey robe represents discretion. In a spread, this card can indicate the ongoing search for knowledge and enlightenment despite many years of learning. The tools to find the way are already in the hands of the querent. They just need to trust and continue their journey. Card 10 shows a wheel with compass points marked by symbols being held aloft by a fox-human hybrid creature. Perched atop the wheel is a sphinx holding a sword, and to the left of the wheel is a snake. In the four corners of the winged creatures are a human, a bird, an ox and a lion, all resting on clouds reading books. This is another card with a lot going on, and in this one it's to demonstrate the complexity of the cycles of life. On the wheel, the letters Torah can be read anti-clockwise. 5 points if you can tell me where else we've seen the Torah in the major arcana so far. It was on number 2, the High Priestess. Well done if you remembered. So again, this card hints at the hidden knowledge of the past, present and future of our lives. The wheel is being held by Anubis, the ancient Egyptian guide to the underworld, and it's been ridden by a sphinx. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the sphinx is the benevolent guardian, and surrounding the wheel is a representation of Set, the ancient Egyptian god of deserts and violence. The 4 creatures in the corners represent the fixed astrological signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio and Aquarius. Taken together, there are a number of key messages in this card: that life is constantly changing and rolling on. The many aspects of life and the afterlife keep the wheel rolling on, and through that motion of the rolling of the wheel of fortune, knowledge is gained, and even seemingly fixed, unchanging things can grow and increase their knowledge. In card 11, we see a robed man sitting on a throne, holding a sword in his right hand and a set of scales in his left. To either side of him are stone pillars, and behind him is a grey-brown banner. The obvious symbols in this card are the sword and the scales, often used as symbols of justice. The seated figure has a neutral expression on his face, symbolising that we need to weigh facts fairly. In a spread, this card serves as a reminder that we are responsible for our actions and of the need to look at facts without the associated emotion. It's primarily associated with objective truth. The 12th card shows a man hanging upside down from a T-shaped wooden structure. The right foot is pointing upwards, while the left foot is crossed behind the right. The arms of the figure are behind his back, and a golden halo appears behind his head, and his face maintains a peaceful expression. The serenity on the face and the casual positioning of the figure indicates that he's there of his own volition, representing self-sacrifice in the pursuit of something. More literally, the card can be seen to represent the need to look at things from a different perspective. The halo represents the enlightenment that this self-sacrifice or change of perspective can offer. Unlucky for some, the 13th card shows Death riding a white horse across a battlefield while holding a black flag with a rose. In the background is a body of water, and the sun is rising or setting behind 2 pillars. At the horse's feet are a dead body, a child and a woman. A crown can be seen, and a holy man appears to be begging for something. While the imagery of this card is quite harrowing, it shows that death is inevitable, and it comes for everyone eventually. When it appears in a spread, it's symbolic of the end of something and is not usually an actual death. The sun rising in the distance is a symbol of hope that even after something has ended, something new will come in its place. Card 14 shows us an angelic figure, standing with one foot on the ground and the other in the water. They're pouring water from one cup to another, while in the background the sun continues to rise from the previous card. The symbol of the tetragrammaton on the chest is said to be the symbol of Yahweh, which has its roots in the term to be, become, or to come to pass. The pouring of water from one cup to the other is representative of watering down wine, something associated with temperance and self-control, the very opposite of self-indulgence. Having one foot on the ground and the other in water is representative of the need to remain grounded while pursuing our goals and transferring them into reality. In card 15, we see the horned devil perched on a metal bar, below which the figures from the Lovers card are pictured, this time with horns and tails of their respective trees. Their chains are loose, and the implication is that they've become demons or servants of the devil. The devil himself has his right hand raised and the left holding a torch pointing down. This card is directly linked to the temptation faced in the Lovers card, and here we see the consequences of that temptation, and that the lovers have become trapped by their own choices. In a spread, this card usually indicates either an addiction or the need to address a problem before it becomes too big to be easily managed. It can also be a warning about complacency and becoming overly concerned with material things. The tower depicted in 16 shows two people leaping from a flaming tower which is being struck by lightning. A crown appears near the top of the tower and the smoke billowing all around. There are also 22 flames in the sky, 12 to the left and 10 to the right. The sudden violent destruction of the tower is symbolic of a sudden danger or change. In the Rider-Waite deck, the crown is symbolic of materialism masquerading as something deeper. The 12 flames to the left symbolise the 12 houses of the zodiac, and the 10 to the right represent the 10 points on the tree of life. When this card occurs in a spread, it's indicative of sudden violent change. This could be something very distressing, but the 22 flames are there to remind us that behind everything there is a plan, even in times of chaos. In card 17, the star, at the centre is a naked woman, kneeling with her knee on the grass and her foot in a pool of water. She's pouring from 2 jugs into the pool and into the grass. Behind her is a tree with a bird and 1 large golden star surrounded by 7 smaller white stars. The large golden star represents the core or soul of a person, while the 7 smaller white stars represent the 7 chakras. The water being poured onto the land represents the renewal of the 5 senses, while the water being poured into the pool is representative of a more general renewal. Notice that, like Temperance, she's pouring the liquid while balanced on land and water. But unlike Temperance, the star shows someone who's achieved balance, and rather than showing self-control, is giving everything to the renewal of all aspects of themselves. In a spread, this card usually represents a time of renewal, personal growth, hope, and an appreciation of what's been achieved. The second of the celestial bodies represented in the major arcana, the moon, shows 2 dogs, 1 feral and 1 domesticated, 1 on either side of a path, a crayfish in a body of water, 2 towers and the moon shining down. There's a face depicted in the moon which also has a crescent moon encased, and 15 yellow flecks are shown between the moon and the ground. The dogs represent the duality of human nature. The domesticated dog is our civilised nature, while the feral dog is our more animalistic self. Both howl at the benevolent moon which is shedding fertilising dew to the ground. The towers echo the duality of human nature as shown in the dogs. It's important to remember that the moon doesn't produce any light of its own and instead reflects the sun. When this card occurs in a spread, it usually indicates the importance of trusting your gut instinct, of listening to the feral dog here representing our subconscious fears, as well as the tame one of our rational mind. It can also indicate that a situation or person isn't what they seem, and that they're merely a reflection of something else. The 19th card shows a naked child riding a white horse while waving an orange cloth and wearing a crown of sunflowers. There are 4 more sunflowers in the background beneath a large, bright and wise-looking sun. Following from the moon, where we were cautioned that things were perhaps not as they seemed, and that we should consider our subconscious fears, the sun represents the conscious mind, defeating our subconscious and irrational fears. The child waving the cloth represents knowledge gained and renewal, and the sun shining down represents blessings. When seen in a spread, this card represents positive outcomes and is often referred to as the best card. It also encourages us to share our blessings with others. Judgment is the 20th card of the Major Arcana and depicts an angel blowing a horn, from which flies the flag of St. George. In response to the horn, the dead are seen rising from their coffins and raising their arms. The coffins are floating on a body of water, and in the background is snow-covered mountains, possibly the same mountain that we see in the hermit that he's standing on. As always, the water is representative of knowledge, and the angel blowing his horn is representative of a time to sit in judgment of oneself. The risen dead are representative of a second chance or rebirth following a major event. When seen in a spread, judgment can indicate a time to reflect and make a big change. The water represents knowledge, and the position of the card being second to last means that a great deal of knowledge and skill are required to make a change or a decision. The final card of the Major Arcana is the World. We see here a figure floating inside a wreath. They seem perfectly content, loosely wrapped in fabric and watched by the 4 representatives of the fixed zodiacal symbols, as we saw in the Wheel of Fortune. The figure at the centre is representative of hermaphroditus and symbolises the perfect balance of the male and female energies. In other cards, we've seen representations of the male and female energy separately, but here they're harmoniously joined. The wreath surrounding them represents the cycle of life that has completed a full turn. This is a pause before the Wheel of Fortune turns once more. As with the Wheel of Fortune, the 4 beasts can be seen to represent the 4 elements, while the person at the centre is the spirit, the 5th element. In a reading, this card represents completion and accomplishment. Something has been achieved which has taken a lot of time and effort. It's time to celebrate and bask in the feeling of a job well done. It also encourages the querent to bring closure to any outstanding things related to this achievement. Thank you for watching this video. I've been Lady Vic, and this was the Beginner's Guide to the Major Arcana. I hope it's been useful. Look out for my Beginner's Guide to the Minor Arcana. Please like, follow and subscribe for more holistic and esoteric content, and see my website, Pure Downloadable Guides.